Oh, hey, Zach from the SIP here. Be honest. Have you missed me? No? Well, I've missed you. The SIP has been in extended quarantine since our first episode release, but fortunately, we are back, and COVID-free. While everybody was working hard on their golf games and tans this summer, we at the SIP have been in self-imposed quarantine, putting together terrific content for you, our large, vast, and loyal audience. What we've been working on is the long-awaited Episode 2 of our COVID-19 miniseries, this time focusing our attention on the financial impact that COVID-19 has had on the construction industry. We've brought together the best and the brightest in the world of corporate finance, contract surety, and premium financing to provide their specific viewpoints on the topic. The conversation was so informative, so stock full of information, that we could have released the footage as a major motion picture. In fact, that was my vote. Unfortunately, I just don't think the SIP is ready to go to Hollywood. What we do have for you is this amazing content divided into 4 parts. In parts 1 through 3, the panelists really get into the details of their specialty, the nitty-gritty. Then for part 4, we bring everyone together and drink. Just kidding. Well, not really. We hear all 4 panelists discuss the overall financial impacts of COVID at large. In part 1 of the series, we talk about corporate finance and construction with Carl Oliveri, construction practice leader at Grassi & Company. In part 2, we talk surety and contractor default with Anthony Romano, vice president of Everest Surety. In part 3, we talk money, particularly premium financing with Scott Foytzak, regional president of First Insurance Funding. Part 4 sees worlds collide as we bring together the 3 fields to discuss the impact of COVID-19 on each of them personally. Now on to the episode. Cheers. We'd like to introduce today's guests. We have with us Carl Oliveri, partner and construction practice leader at Grassi & Company. Carl's a CPA and PC, and he specializes in construction accounting and advisory. Tony Romano, vice president and head of surety at Everest, specializing in surety underwriting. And then last but not least, Scott Foytzak, I think I finally got that right, Northeast Division President at First Insurance Funding, a premium financing company. How you guys all doing today?
Great.
Great, Zach.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
So as you know, we are on the SIP, so it's required that we have a drink and we sip along the way. Let's start with you, Carl. What are you drinking here?
I am drinking Buffalo Trace Bourbon, a change of pace from what I've been drinking, which has been making my way through the Jameson's Stout and IPA collection. Shaving, deodorant have become optional, but whiskey has remained a vital resource during the past.
That's a real thing, though, man. Like, you're not leaving your house. Like, it's the point. It's the point.
Listen, I want to thank you guys for giving me an excuse to comb my hair and put on a golf shirt today. So,
it's our
cheers
pleasure.
to you. Thank you.
Pleasure. Oh, cheers right back. Tony, what are you drinking?
I just have a beer. I feel so pedestrian. I'm sorry it's not more exciting.
That's all
It's
right.
good nonetheless.
It is a Wednesday. It's fine. You can do what you want.
Yes. Amstel, so it's low calorie. Keep my goals figure.
Gotta watch that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Scott, what do you have for us?
I am drinking Buffalo Trace as well. I'm
good
a new whiskey guy because I ran out of all my red wine and vodka, so I do need to make a liquor run.
Did you guys plan that out ahead of time?
We did not.
We did not.
Man after my own heart.
Impressive.
Great minds think alike.
That's
Yeah.
it.
Impressive.
So, topic of discussion today is a financial perspective of COVID-19 with what's going on in the construction industry. As the 3 of us have sat down and talked about this before. We really want to build things up from, kind of like a foundational level before we talk about what's really going on in the world today. So with that, we wanted to start things off with this segment, which is really just a topic overview of everything we're going about, with construction finance from the ground up, really just like how the industry works is what we're looking for. Carl, as the specialist in this field, will look for you to start us off here. We talked about this graph, right, that kind of shows the distribution of cash from the owner level, right? They're going up, securing funding, wherever that's coming from, right? The bank, from investors, hire a GC, and then eventually that money trickles all the way down to the subcontractors and then to the day laborers, right? You just go through that process with us, how exactly all that works?
Yeah, absolutely. So the chain of command of construction, or the construction ecosystem, let's call it, where you have an owner who's sitting up top that has a need. They need a project built, they need a project renovated, whatever it is, they have a need. to have a piece of real estate developed, an existing building, gutted, rehabilitated, whatever that may be, that owner has that need. He or she, that group, is going to either go to outside parties for funding, the bank, raise private capital, or they're going to go into their own pockets for funding. And they're going to typically go out and they're going to hire somebody to do that project for them, a GC or a CM, right? A general contractor or construction manager. These could be one and the same, or they could be two different parties. A pure construction manager would be kind of in between that, the GC and the owner, and that company is going to really be pushing paper, navigating and coordinating the construction process. Think of it as the quarterback of the construction ecosystem, pushing the paper around, understanding the owner's needs, pushing that down to the GC. The difference between a GC and a CM is typically GCs, they'll have their own labor force. They'll have guys and gals on the job site swinging hammers, for lack of better terms, rather than just pushing paper. So they'll kind of work two functions there. They'll communicate with the owner as well, and they're also going to be performing, we call that self-performing, and they're going to go out and hire the subcontractors. The types of subcontractors that most of us are used to are MEPs. Like I said when we were preparing, it took me about 20 years, but I finally figured out what MEP stands for. Mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. It only took 20 years, guys.
It's easy enough, right?
A lot of acronyms. A lot of acronyms.
Yeah, a lot of acronyms. Those are your big trades, right? Those are your HVAC guys who are doing your heating and cooling. Those are your electrical guys and gals, and those are your plumbers. The biggest part of the GC's job is to really coordinate the schedule and the construction process between all three of these trades. Because the last thing you need is the toilets to arrive on site and get installed before the actual plumbing is in the building, right? We don't want to have the drywall guy come in and sheetrock the whole room before the wiring's in the wall as well. So there's a lot of coordination that's happening with that GC as well. I mentioned there's our big three MEPs, but there's also other specialty trade contractors, subcontractors that are going to come on the job site. You got your drywall guys, as I mentioned. You got your carpet and your flooring guys and gals. And then on the facade of the building, and I think Tony would agree with me here, you probably have one of your more riskier trades. Yeah. It's curtain wall, right? And the risk with curtain wall is building envelope. You're producing and manufacturing a specific product for a building that if it's wrong, even by a centimeter, it's useless. And what does that translate into? Lost dollars. So
Carl, the curtain wall, is that just these like the windows? What exactly is that that's put on the exterior of the building?
Yeah, it's the windows, but it's also the glass. It's the building envelope. It's what's protecting the building from the weather, right? It's what's really reinforcing that super steel structure.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the one trade where something goes wrong, you notice it right away. When there's water inside the building, people don't like that much. Yeah.
Now going back to our MEPs, you do have something called tiered subcontractors. So while I'm an electrical contractor, maybe the electrical wiring is so nuanced that I need to bring in a specialist. So under my subs, I could have subs, and my subs could have subs as well. Those are called tiered subcontractors. And kind of, while that's our construction ecosystem, it all operates within this nice little bubble. On the outside, you have our manufacturing distribution friends who are bringing construction supplies onto the job site. Lumber, sheetrock, toilet bowls, pipe, they function into the ecosystem as well.
Sure. So, Carl, your GC, even your trade contractors hiring those lower tier subcontractors, how are they deciding who's getting the job? I'm sure there must be more than one option for any given job out there, right?
Well, yeah, the most common way is the competitive bid process, which is more prominent which is you see that more in the public sector. If anybody subscribes to CIS leads, you see the public bids come out, you see the winners, you see the bid spread, and you see how these jobs are bidding. Typically, that's how it is. It goes to the lowest bidder, right? There are instances in private jobs where you may have a preferential subcontractor, maybe take a bid or two to do a sanity check and somebody sharpen their pencils.
These bids, right? Does the GC, whoever it is, whoever needs a job done, are they putting it out to some sort of public platform where then whoever can provide that service has access to that job to bid on, or are they emailing these out to individuals?
It depends on the type of work. If it's a public bid and you're an approved vendor to work with, let's say the School Construction Authority or NYCHA, you typically get a notification, or you'll get an invitation to bid. You'll get the plan specifications. You'll have your project management and your estimating team draw up the bids, and they'll submit the competitive bid throughout their process. If it's a private job, it may follow suit. It may be a situation where Tony's reaching out to Scott and I saying, hey, listen, I need somebody to do 20 floors of electrical on a residential luxury condominium. Here's the specs. I want you guys to put a bid in. I tell you, from an auditing standpoint, one of the first things we look at is when bid results, when we see new jobs is, great, you were the lowest bidder. What was the second guy? What was the third guy? What was the bid spread? Because the risk we run there for the industry is if you bid that job too low and you're going to lose money or you're going to go into financial distress, what does that do to the credit community and the users of the financial statement too? So that concept of bid spread is very important.
Yeah, it's such a relatively low margin business to begin with. So if there's a big spread, you can easily identify they're not going to make money. And a contractor, the amount of work that we give them on the surety side is usually a multiple of their capital base. So there's not a lot of room for error if they've misestimated the project.
So, Antonio, what is the capital base in layman's terms?
Yeah, their net worth of the company. So, if you take your assets and you subtract out their liabilities, what's the equity of the company? And many times a surety will give a multiple of that amount of credit to a contractor. So if a contractor, say, has a net worth of $5 million, maybe we'll give them $50 million of credit in order to be able to bid on projects, secure those projects, and work on those projects within their backlog.
Right, so that would be like a 10x multiple, right, if we're doing that math, right? Okay, that's interesting.
There's different multiples, but just as a broad guideline, yes.
Mm-hmm. All right, so Carl, let's say I'm one of these guys. I got that invitation to bid, one of the big MEP contractors. I go out, I secure the bid. Well, I guess I win the bid, right? Whatever it is. How do I go about funding this now?
Yeah. So the best advice I give contractors is that you have to look at each job as its own profit and cash flow center. It's not a hodgepodge because each job is unique. Each job has a separate nuances. Hey, listen, some jobs are home runs and you make 20, 30, 40% on it. Some jobs you barely eke out 5%. You can't just go in and say every one of my jobs makes 20%. Each job is unique. So the first step here is typically you have to understand how the billing process is going to work and how your costs are going to be incurred. So the best way to do that is on a project by project basis. You do a cash flow analysis. To get a job mobilized, the best and everybody's favorite way to do it is obviously if you have cash reserves on hand that you can infuse into the job to get it mobilized, to float you from day one till you submit and get that requisition approved and collected. At that point in time, the project's cash flow cycle will kick in, and the project should, if it's a good project, be able to support itself from a cash flow standpoint. Tony, cover your ears here. Worst comes to worst, to get a job mobilized, you will go into your line of credit if you have a line of credit. I always warn clients that the line of credit, it's not there to be continuous debt and carry debt like an accounts payable. It is to be used properly, and that is if you don't have the cash on hand to mobilize the job, go into the line 30 to 45 days until payment one comes in, then get out of the line. And this way, you give the job a kickstart to get the cash flow cycle going on its own. And successful contractors, that's how they use the line of credit. They use it from a job-to-job basis to get the projects mobilized, and then they're out of it.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Carl. It's
Sure.
Really interesting. Makes a lot of sense. Something that we haven't really talked about yet that we know is very important to contractors is cash flow. You were kind of outlining it here. So why exactly is this so important in construction specifically?
Cash is king. I always jokingly tell people when I speak on why contractors fail, I pick somebody in the audience and said, count how many times I say cash is king, because it's going to be over 25 easily in an hour. But that's the truth. This is an industry that contractors don't go out of business because they don't have work. They go out of business because they don't have cash. If you think about the nature of the industry, it is labor intensive. When you add the component of a union onto a contractor's books, you're not floating payroll in a union 30 to 45 days. That is on demand payment for services rendered. So if you don't have the cash flow to cover your labor, you're in trouble. Now, the most expensive form of financing, if you're in a cash crunch, is not paying your payroll taxes. Uncle Sam does not charge favorable interest rates. So if you don't have the cash flow to cover payroll taxes, to cover COD materials, if you tap that on your line of credit, you don't have personal equity to infuse in the company, it's a recipe for disaster. It truly is an industry that lives and dies on cash flow. That's why I go back to my earlier comment when we're talking about mobilizing a job and getting it going. Yes, the line of credit's there. to mobilize, but it's not there to sit in for a year or 2 years. My big takeaway here is you're not going out of business because you don't have the work. It's all about cash flow.
Right, that makes a lot of sense. And I guess that's why you are looking almost, I call it paycheck to paycheck, but what's it called in this setting where you like being paid down from the owner or GC requisition? Did you use
Requisition,
that?
yes, the
That's
requisition
what it is?
cycle.
Okay,
Yes.
requisition cycle, yeah. So really does seem like to fund these jobs, keep them going, you're really, I'll say paycheck to paycheck. That makes sense in my mind. So another big finance term that, I have a loose understanding of, I don't know if it's quite like cash flow, but EBITDA. Can you kind of go through that real quick?
Yeah, so EBITDA is earnings before income taxes, depreciation, amortization. That's really kind of your cash basis income at the end of the day, right? Depreciation is a non-cash item. Income taxes, it's a number that we book into a financial statement. It's a real clear picture of a company's earning potential.
It seems like you're taking a lot of these items out. Is it basically just everything you're making and you're taking out your operating costs, basically?
You're taking out your non-cash costs. If you have a financial statement prepared by a CPA, a review, audit, compilation, you're going to have a statement of cash flows in there. That is the most powerful statement. And Tony, I'm not going to speak for you, but I would imagine that's a statement that you go to and look at, and you're really looking at that cash flows from operations line item, because that's going to tell a user if a company can stand on its own 2 feet.
Absolutely.
Operations are sustaining themselves. I'm sorry, go ahead, Tony.
Yeah, as I say, spend a lot of time on getting a better feel for where the money's coming in and out of the company. And that kind of gives you some guidance as to what their future capabilities are to run through their work and their backlog.
Yeah, Tony, I know we'll get into some of your stuff a little bit later on, but I wanted to roll with this. When do you have a good feeling when you're taking a look at the statement of cash flows, and when do you get a bad feeling? Just like
so if they have a lot of cash from operations, that gives you a good feel that they're not having to fund their program through outside lending or through using their bank lines or other matters that are outside of really the day-to-day operation of their company. So as long as they're generating nice positive cash flow from operations, you feel pretty comfortable. When it's negative, then you don't feel so good, and you have to dig a little deeper to figure out why it's so negative, why they're not turning over, why the receivables billing growing, why they're not turning the receivables. And things of that nature.
So like outside sources of capital would be like
a bank line of credit
okay.
or a term loan, things of that nature, where they have to rely on another source in order to provide enough liquidity to manage their business.
Cash will go out the door a lot faster than it came in. So we're telling our clients, do those cash flows, look at every 8 weeks and constantly update them.
Well, that felt worth the wait to me. We hope you enjoyed the episode and really got a feel for the complex nature of finance in the construction industry and all of its intricacies. Remember to tune into part 2, same time, same place, next Thursday, where we get into surety and contractor default with another one of our industry-leading panelists. So, see you soon. Cheers!